Hello gardening friends! I am super excited to get us started today on our single square foot gardening bed. If you are here from the first video, what is square foot gardening? I'll put a link to that up here. You should be excited and ready to get started growing. But first, we're gonna build our beds. We're gonna talk about the soil we need, and we're gonna talk about the seeds that we're gonna need. Let's get started building. Okay, so the first thing we gotta do is we gotta cut our boards to length. I'm gonna show you the simplest, easiest ways to do it. Standard square foot gardening calls for using 2x6s and screwing 3 screws in the end. We're gonna use a 2x4, which is gonna give us 3.5 inches of soil, as opposed to a 2x6 would give you 5.5. But a lot of crops don't need that much soil. And if you have a plant that needs more soil, like say a tomato, which is one tomato in your square foot, you could always stack 2 of them on top of each other. Plus, I'm gonna put mine over top of a garden bed that has been prepared before, so it's gonna have good soil underneath. Okay, so we're gonna start with a piece of 2x4 lumber. We're just gonna use regular wood. We're not going to use treated wood because we don't want any chemicals getting into our crops. So I got an 8-foot 2x4, and that's going to give us 6 sides for our single square foot bed. So we can make 1.5 of our bed. Pine will rot eventually, but you can get probably 3 or 4 years out of a standard untreated pine wood. As gardeners, and especially organic gardeners, we are worried about treated wood, about what that might put into our soil and eventually into our crop. So yeah, here's our 96-inch board. What we're gonna do is we're gonna measure 13.5 inches, because we have 12 inches here, and then we have 1.5 inches for our 2x4. So it'll be 13.5 inches. We'll make a mark there, get out our handy speed square, because we want these to be fairly square. Now there's a variety of ways that you can cut the boards. I'll go ahead and show you a couple, and I'm basically using hand tools because a lot of you probably don't have a miter saw or a circular saw. So I'm going to show you a couple ways that we can do this with tools that you may already have. Alright, so the first way is to use a little miter box. So you put the line right here in the middle, and we use our miter box. Here we go. There's our first part of our single square foot garden. The ends of your lumber, where you just purchased it here, are going to be fairly square. So if you cut a side off of one end of your store-bought lumber, then you take it and you cut the end from the other end, and you'll have 2 ends that are pretty square. Then the middle ones are the ones you're going to have to be real careful to get at least one side of them pretty perfectly square. And to cut down on the cost even more, you could of course use repurposed wood, even like pallets or something like that, to make your square foot beds. I'm going to show you a couple of different ways to go ahead and make your square foot bed. 13.5. Mark the square. And this is called a coping saw. It's used for trim work in carpentry. But if you have one of these laying around, you can even use this. Alright, look at that. I didn't do too bad for an old carpenter. Then of course, it's always fun to use a chainsaw. What a beautiful cut. Almost on the lines even. Then if I were more of a bushcrafting channel, I'd show you how to do it with an axe. But I'm not, so that's not really a good idea. Here's another carpentry tip for you. If you have a factory edge here, you don't even need a square. You just put your factory edge board on here, and you make a mark right down the factory edge. And that should give you a pretty square cut. You can even use repurposed wood. I got this wood from a pallet. You just have to be careful about not hitting nails when you're using repurposed wood, that's for sure. If you have a miter saw or a circular saw, a skill saw, table saw, whatever, go ahead and use them. I'm just trying to show you what can be done using the simplest of tools and materials. All right, let's go get started building. Okay, so I'm gonna put this together on my driveway because I have more or less a level surface here. We'll put one board against the other board like this, and then the next board will go like this, and the next board will go the same way. One thing you want to watch out for though is you want to put the board that has the straightest edge, like see that one has a factory edge there. You want to put that one butted into the next board. So even if this one is off a little bit, the final product will be a lot straighter than if you put a crooked edge on here. All right, let's do it. I'm using 16 penny framing nails. And like I said, you can use screws. I'm just trying to show you, again, the simplest way to do it. So again, here's a nice straight edge. So we're gonna butt that into an edge that maybe isn't quite so straight. So we hold it up like this. We can also put another board underneath the other side to hold it nice and sturdy while we're going to be hammering. One thing you can do, also another carpentry trick, is you can take and tap the end of the nail so that'll make it not quite so sharp, so it'll be less likely to split the wood. So you're going to go back into the middle of this board, which is actually 3/4 inch, and go ahead and put the nail in. See, that didn't split it at all. There you go. So see how that one is on top of this one? So the next one is going to be on top of this one. And to make this level, if you want to keep it level for nailing purposes, you can go ahead and put that board underneath there. Same thing, here we go. Yay, there's our first single square foot bed. Another beautiful thing about this system is, if we want to put another bed on here, all we need is 12-inch sides. We already have this side and another board here, which is actually 12 inches plus 3 inches for the 2x4s, so that would be 15 inches. And we'll have another square foot that we can tie right into this one. Just put a little screw, countersink a little screw right down in that. Okay, so for our second square foot, again, 12-inch board by 15-inch board. This one's going to be more important to not split because it's an older piece from that pallet. All right, so that will butt up to our first bed, and we'll have two nice squares. Okay, so now we got our beds done. Let's talk about the soil. Soil for the square foot garden is named Mel's Mix, and of course that's named after Mel Bartholomew, the founder of Square Foot Gardening. There's only 3 ingredients required for traditional square foot gardening. First thing is peat moss, second thing is vermiculite, third thing is compost. That's it, 3 ingredients. But it does get a little tricky because vermiculite is supposed to be coarse vermiculite, and coarse vermiculite is sometimes hard to source. So I'm going to go ahead and put some Amazon affiliate links down in the description so that if you can't find anything locally, or you just want to order from your house, you can't get out of your house right now maybe, you can go ahead and order from Amazon. My Lowe's store did have it at one point, but last time I went in there, they were out. So what you can replace vermiculite with is perlite. It's basically the same thing. And I got a bag of this, 8 quarts worth. Got this at Lowe's and it was about $5. And this is the white stuff. Let me open it and I'll show you. This is the white stuff. If you can see that. It's the white stuff that is in potting mixes, professional potting mixes, like in the nurseries and stuff. They use this a lot. And what it is, it's a volcanic rock that they heat up and it explodes like popcorn, I guess. And it makes this nice product that holds the water and it loosens up the soil. Okay, second ingredient is peat moss. So you can buy peat moss in big, huge bales, or you can buy it in little bags like this as well. And since we're just getting started with a single square foot, I went ahead and got it in another 8-quart bag. So that's 8 quarts of perlite, 8 quarts of peat moss. Now, one thing about peat moss is that some people don't like it because it's not a renewable resource. So another thing that you can use alternatively for peat moss is coconut coir. And I love coconut coir. You can buy it in a little block. I don't think I've ever seen that locally either. So again, Amazon affiliate link in the description. But it's a block, and it's actually the coconut husk that they peel off when they do the coconuts. And it's all compressed in a tight little bale. And what you do is you put it in a bucket or a wheelbarrow with warm or even hot water, and then it'll soak into there and loosen up, and it becomes a nice crumbly mix. It's real similar to peat moss, the way it looks when you're done. So that's ingredient number 2. So ingredient number 3 is compost. But by saying there's only 3 ingredients, it is a little bit misleading, because it's actually, the third ingredient is blended compost. The reason Mel wants you to blend the compost, and I think it's a good idea too, is because like if you get mushroom compost, sometimes it's maybe depleted of minerals more than other kinds, or if you get different kinds of compost, they might be depleted of different nutrients. So it's a good idea to go ahead and blend them, so you're going to have more of a balanced mix of nutrients, because the compost is the most important part of this mix, really, because that's what's going to feed the plant. The other 2 ingredients, the peat moss and the vermiculite, are inert, and they're just going to be there to loosen up the soil and help the roots stay loose, help the soil stay loose. The compost is what's going to really help it grow. In light of that, I do recommend using some fertilizer with a bed like this. So what I do is I get an OMRI listed fertilizer, and I'll use that according to the package directions in my square foot beds. So here's what I'm talking about, is an OMRI listed fertilizer. So OMRI is just, it means it's okay to grow with organic stuff. This I got off a sales rack for 25% off last fall, so that was awesome. And this can really help make your soil into better soil to be able to grow things better. This says organically based, OMRI listed, aerobically composted for enhanced quality, feeds the soil and adds calcium for improved yield and bigger plants. All right, let's get started mixing. You can use a bucket, but for the quantities that I'm doing, I'm going to go ahead and use my wheelbarrow. You could put it out on concrete to mix it. I've seen some people put it on a tarp to mix it. It's all good. Okay, so let's mix the peat moss and the perlite first. Okay, now I'm going to go get some compost. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use one of these bags and put my compost in there, so I'll have the third part of my 3-part mix. All right, here we go. Be right back. Now we're going to add the compost. I got this compost from my garden, so it might be a little chunky. I can actually throw out some of the chunks as we go here. Got a lot of avocado seeds that might not be fully composted. Lots of bugs and lots of worms, but it does have some sticks and stuff too, so I like to throw those out. Sometimes commercial compost comes with a bunch of sticks and stuff in it too, so it's not a bad idea to run it through like a 1/4 inch of that hardware cloth, the mesh type of like fencing stuff, to make sure you get all the big clumps out. This is actually compost from my vermicomposting, worm composting bin, so there's quite a few worms in there. That compost did have a bit of moisture to it, which is good because we need to have some moisture in here. So I'm going to go ahead and get the hose and moisten this down. Oh wait, before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and add my fertilizer. Okay, so I'm going to put it on shower, and I like to wet down the top a little bit and then stir it in, and then wet it down again, stir it in again. Make sure everything gets moistened evenly. Okay, so what we're looking for is a mix that has a fair amount of water. You can actually feel the water as you squish it, and you can hear the water. You can hear the water as you squish it, and a little bit of water might even come out if you squeeze it super hard. But it crumbles up nice and crumbly right as soon as you're done with that. So this is perfect. So let's go ahead and fill up our bed. Doesn't it look like nice commercial type of potting mix? That's all there is to it. Okay, one other thing that we didn't talk about is the seeds. Now you can get your seeds at your local hardware or Lowe's, Home Depot. Even your dollar stores have a lot of seeds. I did a video earlier, which I'll put a link at the top here, so you can see some of my favorite seed companies. And these are not big seed companies, these are actually the little guys. So you might want to take a look at those seed companies and see if you see anything you like there. Our first project is going to be planting French breakfast radishes. The reason I chose French breakfast radishes is because they are a super quick crop. They'll be ready to eat in 25 to 30 days. They're a simple crop. They sprout quickly. They sprout in 3 to 5 days in good conditions. They're a lot of fun to grow, and they're a lot of fun to eat. So it's a plant that you can plant and get results quickly. So it's a great project, even if it's a project for kids or someone who's never gardened before. Let me talk a little bit about placement of your square foot bed. You want to place it in a place that's going to get a fair amount of sun. Place the most sun you can get on your property is the best spot. 6 to 8 hours would be great. The bottom is open, so if you put it on top of grass, the grass is going to grow up through. There's a couple things you can do about that. You can get some of that landscaping fabric and just staple it around the bottom, or even simpler than that, you can go ahead and put this on cardboard, and the cardboard will stop the weeds from coming up through and kill the grass. Also, if you're worried about voles, we don't have voles here, but I guess there's a lot of areas of the country that has voles or mice that'll dig up through and decimate the beds. You can actually put some of that 1/4 inch hardware cloth around the bottom of this too, and that'll stop them from coming through and damaging the root. All right, we are ready to get started planting. I will leave a link up here to our first video on growing radishes, and I'll leave a link over here to the beginning of the series on what is square foot gardening. All right, thanks for watching. Have a blessed day. We'll see you again real soon.